Hello, it's Jessica, and I'm here with Beta Virtual Assistants. It is Saturday morning, and I am talking crypto investing and strategy tips because I love to do that. What can we talk about with crypto investing this week? What I would love to share about is I have been watching the Pacific Bitcoin Festival put on by Swan Bitcoin over the last 2 days. They had 2 days of presentations by various people who love Bitcoin, and they sent out a link to the live stream. So I actually have spent the last 2 days watching the presentations on super speed, like 3 or 4 times speed. I'm not sure how much I'll retain of what I saw, but I did see a lot of things that I like. Swan Bitcoin, we talk about them a lot. They are a company that helps you invest in Bitcoin. And they do this in two important ways. Number one is they have a dollar cost averaging system that really is easy to do. You go on their website, you open an account, connect it to your bank account, and you say, I want to invest this much Bitcoin once a week or once every day or something like that. And you set it and you forget it and it does its thing. It like buys Bitcoin, it's dollar cost averaging, which over time, if Bitcoin's up 1 week or if it's down 1 week, you don't have to worry about timing the market. You can just know that you are getting $10 of Bitcoin every day. And the way they talk about Bitcoin, especially in this conference where they were all very pro Bitcoin, now's the time to be getting Bitcoin when it's on sale, when it has been having trouble in the crypto market. If you think that Bitcoin is the future, and these people obviously do, now is the time to be getting it. So getting dollar cost averaging, for instance, 2 years ago, I set up a dollar cost averaging program. It pulls $70 out of my bank account every week, and then it buys $10 of Bitcoin each day. $10 times 7 is $70, and the fee is pretty low. I think it's 1% fee for the process, which is a lot lower than other places that I've seen that also do dollar cost averaging. So that is one way that Swan Bitcoin serves your purposes as a Bitcoin investor. The other way is they have started having Bitcoin IRAs, which means that you can set up your retirement portfolio in a Bitcoin IRA. You can be buying Bitcoin instead of the traditional IRA here in the United States. It's often invested with the stock company and you're buying mutual funds or you're buying some kind of stock or, depending what you're doing. There are ways to set up IRAs with property. I mean, the smartest way to use an IRA, since it is tax-free when you take the earnings out, especially if it's a Roth IRA here in the United States. Let me just keep saying that. Okay, if you're in the United States and you're looking for a place to grow your retirement savings and you don't want to pay taxes, open a Roth IRA. And especially if you can get an asset in there that will really perform well over time. And what could be better, Bitcoin believers say, what could be better than Bitcoin? So if you had bought Bitcoin in a Roth IRA a few years ago and then you held on until it peaked, or even now, you would be up so far from where you started. I mean, imagine if you had bought it at $1,000 and now it's worth 29,000 this morning, 28,000, around there. It went from 1,000 to 28,000. If you had a couple of Bitcoins in there, you would have $100,000, and that would be tax-free growth. So I like the idea of a Bitcoin Roth IRA. I haven't gone to the trouble of setting it up, but I do have a friend who set up a Roth IRA for Bitcoin through Swan. And the only thing I'm not crazy about is that she set it up, but they charge a $20 a month maintenance fee, I think. So I would want to know more about that, because $20 a month, I mean, if Bitcoin is making you $100,000, that's one thing. $20 a month is like, who cares? But $20 a month, if Bitcoin's going through crypto winter, is like digging further into your losses. And you can't claim losses in Bitcoin during a crypto winter in a Roth IRA. So there's like, on the one hand, it could save you a lot on taxes. On the other hand, you can't take advantage of the tax losses in a Roth IRA if you end up with tax losses, which at the moment could be very true. But the reason we're here is not to talk all about Swan Bitcoin, although they sponsored this Pacific Bitcoin Festival thingy over the last couple of days. But what is Bitcoin and why is Swan so pro Bitcoin? So every once in a while, you'll hear about Bitcoin maximalists. Bitcoin maximalists are people who really believe Bitcoin is the future. They believe there is no way out of this, that governments around the world have been manipulating the currency supplies and inflating the heck out of their currencies. And one day, people are going to get fed up and everything's going to go down the toilet. And what will be left? And the Bitcoin maximalists think that Bitcoin is going to be left, and it is the only thing you should be buying. They are definitely not interested in altcoins. They call them shit coins. They'll put up with ETH maybe, but pretty much every other coin out there, they're like, what is the point of it? What is its purpose? Why would anyone want to buy it long term? It's true that if you're of the speculative type, you can invest in a coin and make a lot of money if you buy when it's low and you sell when it's high. But Bitcoin maximalists believe that Bitcoin is the only true cryptocurrency, and if you're investing in anything else, you're speculating and you're taking big risks with your money. Swap and Bitcoin is like the premier company that's like pro Bitcoin, definitely Bitcoin maximalist. They always tell you not your keys, not your crypto. So they really want you to buy your Bitcoin with them, but then they want you to put it in your own wallet where you have your own control over it. I did not listen to this. I ended up putting my first Swan DCA purchases into my Celsius account because I was really interested in earning interest. That went down the toilet when Celsius decided to declare bankruptcy, and I'm still hoping to get a little bit of my original Bitcoin back. But in the meantime, I have learned my lesson, and I am now sending my Bitcoin purchases to a Ledger wallet because I can control it, and because the only person who risks losing it when it's in a wallet is you, because you forgot your key phrases or your seed phrases or something like that, or you listen to a hacker and get tricked into giving them some of the information they need to access your Bitcoin. So don't do that. Be safe. Always, always, always keep control of your own keys. Don't give other people your passwords and things like that. So it can be risky to put your Bitcoin or your other investments that you're holding for long term in a centralized exchange. So there you go. But what I found really fascinating at this Bitcoin conference was 2 days of presentations, tons of info. And actually I have here, so the first link I'm putting in here is day 1 live stream. I don't know if they'll keep this up permanently, but I found some of the talks on day 1 so fascinating. There was a presentation by a mining company who I think was sponsoring the conference, so of course they want to make themselves look good. But the thing that I love talking about all the time, and I wrote a blog article about recently, because I don't think enough people know about this, and here's my blog article because I love talking about this. So often you'll hear that Bitcoin is destroying the environment, and that is bad for the environment, and that you shouldn't invest in Bitcoin because it's using all this energy and blah, 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 blah. And what they said during this presentation, which is what I've heard before, but just like, they laid out that Bitcoin and the environment, okay, so number one, Bitcoin is being completely transparent about how much energy they use because everything's on the blockchain and we know how much it costs to run things and blah, 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 blah. And they're saying, okay, Bitcoin does cost this much in energy to function. What they don't tell you is that all of the other things that we do cost energy too. And how does that compare to Bitcoin? So this presentation was pointing out, like, you know, the travel industry, airlines and things like that, they use so much energy. Or the oil and gas industry, they use so much energy to produce the oil and gas that we then use for energy. There's so much energy that goes into that. And people aren't like pointing fingers at, you know, Exxon or whatever and saying, oh my God, you use too much energy to get the energy that we need. It's just like acceptance. It's just like part of what is. And yet people look at Bitcoin using a little bit of electricity to do their mining and they're like, oh my God, Bitcoin's using too much energy and we have to shut it down because it's bad for the environment. And it's like, oh my God. So that was like the first point. But the second point is that there's so much things that Bitcoin is really trying to do because as an industry, they make more money if they are more efficient with their energy usage. So they are all about finding ways to reduce their energy footprint. And some of the ways that they're doing it is really cool. They've figured out how to create or harvest energy from volcanoes down in El Salvador, I think, which is where they have made Bitcoin their primary currency. They also had a presentation about being in El Salvador and seeing that economy transforming from being completely dependent on the United States and the dollar and just having all kinds of problems with inflation and all this sort of thing. And now they're like, Bitcoin is saving their lives, basically. So that was interesting. That was a day 2 presentation. So day 1, this environment thing. So number 1, they're figuring out how to use volcano energy to power miners. They have now started adding little Bitcoin miners to all the oil and gas rigs, especially like natural gas, apparently. They couldn't harvest the natural gas all the time. They have to dig the well. And then it's producing all the time, but for some reason they couldn't harvest it all the time. So they would set it on fire and burn it up, which is causing all of this, like, pollution and all of these problems with these natural gas flares. And they were like, oh, well, that's just the way it is, right? Well, the Bitcoin miners have figured this out, and they have figured out how to hook it up so that their Bitcoin miner runs when they need to burn off the natural gas. So instead of burning it off and contaminating the environment for absolutely no reason, waste of energy and all this stuff, they're actually using that to harvest Bitcoin. And it's like, this is amazing. Not to mention the other ones that I write about in the article that I've read about the seaweed factory or something. There's a seaweed or lumber factory somewhere in Europe that's using Bitcoin miners and the heat produced from them to help dry the seaweed. It's like so clever. Or like the Bitcoin miners in Texas that hook up their Bitcoin miners to the power grid, and they actually use the excess electricity, because it turns out like electricity is a tricky thing. You have to produce enough electricity that everyone has when they want it, but then people don't use the same amount of electricity all the time. So then what happens when now you're overproducing electricity, and that electricity is going to go to waste? But instead, when you've got the Bitcoin miners working with you, you send it to the Bitcoin miners when you need to get rid of your excess electricity. They're paying you for the electricity. They're actually using it. They're not wasting it. I mean, okay, obviously you can tell that this is one of my passions. Is I'm just fascinated by the whole Bitcoin and the environment argument, and the things that Bitcoin miners are doing to move our world forward. Oh my gosh, another talk that they did on day 2, they showed this video, kind of the history, like in 1940s, this is what the world was like. In 2008, this is what the world was like. And in 2000, around now is what the world is like. But then they went forward in the future with Bitcoin, and it was just like, of course, these are Bitcoin believers making the video. So there's just like, oh my gosh, look, it's so peaceful and environmental, and the sun is shining and everybody's happy. It's like, yes, that's what I want. Totally what I want. So good job. They made a good video. But anyways, okay, so day 1, that was my favorite presentation about the mining. Day 2, here, let me get that link. Day 2, they opened the session yesterday with discussions about CBDCs, which I'm often worried about, which is the central bank digital currencies, and how people think that's the same thing as, like, what is the difference between credit card payments that are making digital payments? You pull out your credit card and use your credit card and it's cashless and blah, 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 blah. But that is different from a central bank digital currency, which the government could control, and all the problems with that. And then versus something like Bitcoin, where you're still making digital payments, but it's private and the government can't control it, and all this sort of thing. So they went into a really good discussion about that, which I always appreciate because it's a confusing subject and I don't know everything. So I love watching people talk about these sorts of things. So they talked about that, and I am forgetting at the moment. There was like 6 hours of presentations both days. So I am not remembering at this precise moment what else they talked about, but there were other great things that they talked about. They talked about how it's changing lives in El Salvador. They talked about how they're doing research to make Bitcoin more friendly, more useful, and to help people get used to it. Oh, they talked about why the Bitcoin ETFs are important, but also that it is much better to have Bitcoin as opposed to having Bitcoin ETFs, because the ETFs are charging you fees and not quite following the trajectory of Bitcoin. Whereas if you just have Bitcoin, you don't have to pay a fee. It is just sitting there and it will grow, and that's the idea, is it will grow. I'm sure there were other things. That's a few of my takeaways from the Pacific Bitcoin Festival. They do this festival possibly a couple times a year, and could be really fun to go meet other people who are really into Bitcoin. They say that the head of MicroStrategy, Michael Saylor, was there at the last one in the front row, listening to all the presentations. I enjoyed watching it on triple speed so that I could get through it kind of quickly. Day 2 presentation, like the first 2 presentations were pretty good because one was explaining about CBDCs and all the stuff that's wrong with them. And then the second one was talking about why Bitcoin is good. It was just that. So Bitcoin is amazing, and why it's amazing, and why you want to hold on to it, and why you want to be buying it. Oh yeah, because the government is inflating away our future. And they talked a lot about how the debt and the inflation and what happens to other countries that have had their money inflated so much that, like, you know, you have to use a wheelbarrow to buy a loaf of bread kind of thing. So they talked a lot about that, which I found really interesting, although I can't remember long enough to tell you. Anyways, so there's a lot of links in this chat. I think I forgot one more link I wanted to share though. So if you want to get started just buying a little bit of Bitcoin every day or set up a Roth IRA. So this is an affiliate link. First one, if you get set up with them, we'll earn a small commission for introducing you. And that has nothing to do, as they always say, we do believe in them as a good company. I use them. Obviously, Guillaume also uses them. We think Bitcoin is the future, and we don't always have a lot of money sitting around, and it's hard to time the market. So doing dollar cost averaging makes a lot of sense to me, especially as I am so busy doing other people's crypto taxes that I don't have time to figure out when should I buy Bitcoin this month. So having it automatically set that it's buying $10 every day, I don't even have to think about it. I definitely think an IRA could be a good idea, although I would, full disclosure, figure out if they are charging $20 a month, or if maybe it's only for certain account sizes, or maybe that's because they're like investing it regularly or something, and there are transaction fees that they need to pay. So check it out. Think about buying some Bitcoin. It could be the future. I see people who get this excited about Bitcoin, and it's a little bit with a grain of salt, because it's like, well, yes, they're very excited about it, and at the same time it could be an amazing opportunity. And if you get in on the ground floor, you're obviously going to do better. They're still talking at the festival that, you know, Bitcoin is still early. We are still in the early game. So getting in now, getting in as an early adopter is usually a lot more profitable and a lot more scary and a lot more Wild West. And oh my gosh, you don't know what's going to happen next. But can pay off for the people who stick it out and are smart. On the other hand, getting in as an early adopter for something that tanks is not the best thing to do, because you lose all your money. So always be careful, always do your own research, always ask lots of questions, and don't bet the house on it, as they say. Be smart. Spread your baskets of investments around so that if 1 or 2 or 10 don't pay off, at least you have the other ones to kind of cover up for it. Anyways, that's all I got to say today. Thank you so much for listening to my rambling. Check out the links if they still work. I don't know how long they're keeping up the YouTube live streams, but if you have a chance to watch them, I would totally jump all over that. We are here Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4 p.m. Eastern talking about crypto taxes and how to be smart about tax planning and that sort of thing. We love to help people figure out how to do their crypto taxes, and if you need help, there's usually a link in the comments to one of our courses. This week I think it's the one where you get 2 questions answered. Do you need to file taxes this year, and do you need help filing taxes? So get those 2 questions answered and you are set, right? We are here Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. talking about investing and what we're seeing going on in the crypto world and all that sort of thing. We love to hear questions, so send us a message, come to one of our Facebook Lives and ask it live, all that. And in the meantime, have a great weekend, and I will see you another time when we can talk more about crypto and investing and the future and what is going to happen next. So until then, have a great weekend, and we'll see you later.